Hello and welcome to erpwebtutor.com. This is Arideep, and in this series of videos we will walk you through the steps of configuring the payroll module. We will try to explain each and every step in details, but you have to keep in mind that you really need to practice this multiple times in order to get a good grasp of the concepts behind the setups. At any step, if you don't understand a certain thing, feel free to rewind and watch it again. That might help. And we highly recommend that you also refer to the payroll user guide to understand certain things in details. That would be really beneficial for you. And also make sure to go through the core HR setups on our website before you actually start practicing the payroll setups, as these payroll setups that we're going to show you is entirely based on the core HR setups, which is shown on our website. So with all said and done, so let's get started and do some real payroll hands-on stuff. We are going to base our this entire setup on this document that we have, and the very first thing that we need to do is we need to create or add some more information to the business group and the GRE. So let's begin with adding whatever information that we need to add for the business group. So for that, we will just take a look at here, and we already are logged in as our demo user, as you can see here, which is our demo HR, and we go to our custom responsibility. And under US Super HR Manager responsibility, we go to work structures. This is where we have our orgs defined. Underneath that, organization, description. So once we are on the organization screen, it's going to prompt us to change the effective date. So we're going to change it to our effective date, which we are using as 1st Jan 1951. And then on the find screen, we're going to find our business group. We can find by the name, or we can find by the classification, which is the business group. So we will click on find, and this is our business group that we have. It's called the Demo Corp US Business Group, and it has been classified as a business group. As you can see here, it's enabled. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to make some changes, or we're going to make sure that some of the setups are correct, which are needed for the payroll purpose. So one thing we're going to quickly take a look is something called the US processing rules. And this one, as you can see, that there is no entry, and we're going to select the option, which is the track involuntary deductions. We're going to select by assignment within the GRE. So we will select this and we will save it. The next thing that we need to do is there's another additional organization information, which is called the state tax rules. Right here, open this and just make sure that it has the value yes. This is the default value, and we're just making sure that it is set to yes. Okay, and we did not make any change, so we don't need to save it. The last piece is the Workday Information, which is another additional organization information. The last one, which is the Workday Information, and we need to enter either the start time, end time, or the working hours. And this is actually, by setting this up, it will default to the employee's assignment. So even if you forget to enter the working hours, which is actually used by the fast formulas, and if we do not have any value in here, it's going to fail. So if you forget to enter it at the assignment level, it should have some value from here. So we will say 40 hours in a week, and the frequency is week. So 40 hours per week. And let's save this. Yes. So those are the three things that we need to check at the business group level. Now the next thing that we need to do is we're going to set a few things up for our GRE. So let's query for the GRE first. We go to the find button. Again, the same way we're going to find our GRE. If you have multiple GREs, it's going to bring in all the GREs. For our testing purpose, we only have one GRE, which is the Demo Corporation US. And in a similar way, like we did for the business group, we're going to set some of the information for the additional org information. So click on others. The first thing that we're going to do is something called the employer identification, which is this. And we have to enter the employer identification number in here, which is nothing but which is assigned to any employer when they open, when you are into business, you get assigned a unique employer identification number. So we're going to enter something here. We will just enter something random. So this is our employer identification number. And the state income tax withholding rule is all states, which is default. We'll leave it at that. Okay. And we'll save it. So the next thing that we need to do is we need to set up the federal tax rules. Now click on the federal tax rule, and then once you click here, it's going to open this. Now you can see here that some of the fields are required, some are not. We will enter the information based on the requirement. Now there is something which we are seeing, that the Social Security self-adjust method, the Medicare self-adjust methods, these are different kinds of deductions that's going to happen when you run the payroll. Now these methods that you select determine the calculation of withholding for taxes, taken as a percentage of the earnings, until an employee's earnings reach a certain kind of upper limit. So the method, so if you see here, the list of value has a couple of options, but what we're going to do is we're going to select the self-adjust. So by selecting the self-adjust, this ensures greater accuracy by basing the withholding calculations on a year-to-date earnings instead of earnings in this particular period. So like if you're running it for bi-weekly period, payroll, or monthly, so it's going to base the employee's earnings on a year-to-date basis by selecting the self-adjust. And also the other advantage of having this self-adjust set up is that it will also eliminate, not completely, but in most cases, the creation of refunds and adjustment elements. So we will talk about later on about adjustment elements, how we do and adjustments or refunds to employees. If some employees overpaid or underpaid, we have to make some adjustments. So but by doing this, you can eliminate a lot of those. So we are going to select self-adjust for the Medicare as well, and the same thing for the FUTA, which is the federal unemployment tax. And if you happen to know the unemployment override rate, you could do that. And then the type of employment, it's not something required. If you have the type of employment, these are all coming from different lookups. So if you want to add a particular value to a lookup which is specific to the company or the client you're working for, you could add that value to the lookup, and this will show up here, and you could assign the value for that. This is just for information purpose. This doesn't have any real significance there. Now for this one, we'll just say the regular 941, which is kind of a default, and this is not a government employer, so we will just leave it as no, the government employer. Now the next thing is the tax group. This is something important that you understand, the significance of entering some value in the tax group. So what the tax group does, it associates several GREs. So if your implementation has multiple GREs, it kind of groups multiple GREs into one tax group. So the employees who transfers from one GRE to another within the group receive the credit in the new GRE for amounts withheld in the former GRE towards the Social Security and the federal unemployment tax. So let's say if we have multiple GREs for the company and an employee moves from one GRE to another, by default what Oracle will do is that it will start calculating the deductions from zero, and then it will go on till it reaches the limit. But let's say 6 months the employee works in one GRE, has his withholdings, and then moves to the next one. By the end of 9 months, maybe his limits will be reached and there will be no more deductions. But if you do not have any tax group, and if you move the employee from one GRE to another, it will start from zero, and of course the employee will not reach the max by the end of 6 months or the end of the year. So the employee has to get a refund when he's filing his taxes. So that's the significance of setting up a tax group. Now for the time being, we have only one GRE for this training, and that's the reason why we are keeping the tax group as null. But that's the significance of this field. It's important to know that this is an option that you can set up if the client asks for this withholdings to carry over from one GRE to another. So for now we'll leave it null. Okay, and we'll save it. Now the next thing is we're going to set up the NACHA rules. So what is the NACHA rules? It's going to do is, if you're using direct deposit, Oracle will use this NACHA, which is the North American Clearinghouse, to prepare the file that you're going to send it to your bank for direct deposits. Now in here you're going to enter some information that will be used in the file that gets generated on the NACHA file. So click on this. Now here, the first thing is the company name. We're going to say Demo Corp US. The service class code, this is going to be select this option, which is the ACH entries, mixed debits and credits. So you can have a debit and a credit on the file, the NACHA file. And the next thing is the NACHA standard entry class code. Select this option. This is the prearranged payment and deposit entry. The company identification, again this is the company identification number, which is unique to the company. So this is our company identification number. Again, these are all hypothetical. So the company discretionary data, you can enter codes which are significant to your company to enable spatial handling of entries in the batch. This field really has no standard interpretation. Same thing with the message authentication code. You can enter some 8-character to validate the authenticity of the ACH transfer. And then the individual identification, we're going to select the social security number, so the individuals will be identified by social security number. And you can see that there's another option which is the employee number, but for the US legislation it's more perfect. It's better if you are identifying the individual by a social security number. That way you can definitely say that this individual, you can separate individuals from one another. You can have by accident, by mistake, same employee number assigned, or something happened from your different business group. But if you are identifying employees by a social security number, you can definitely identify the individual without any duplication. So we're going to say social security number. In the company entry description, so we'll say instead of salary, we will make it payroll. So that's all we're going to do here. Say OK, and we'll save it. The next thing that we need to do is the state tax rules, which is another additional organization information. Click on here. So you can actually have multiple entries in here. If your company is registered in multiple states, you could have multiple lines in here. Now, now the state code, in our case is California, and the resident wage, its default, local income tax is all localities. And again, we're going to use our same employer, the identification number, which is this is the identification number which is used by the state to identify the company. So we're going to keep it the same that we have. And again, there's another field, the SUI wage base, going to leave it null, the rest null. Again, this SIT, the state income tax company state ID, we're going to use the same one. And these ones, the SUI, the SDI, all these we're going to select the self-adjust. So this way, like I said before, we can eliminate the balances or adjustments. So we're going to say self-adjust. Again, this is also self-adjust. Oh, sorry. So this is the rate. Sorry, we're not entering any rate. If you happen to know the rates, you can enter the rates. Now, the filing status or the allowance rate, this is the default. So if you don't enter anything, it's going to have the single status and 0 allowances. So if you happen to know a little bit about the US payroll system, you can have a single, the married, the married and head of household, all these options. And depending on your selection and also the the number of the values that you enter for your withholdings, whether it's at the state or the federal level, it's 1 or 2 or 3 or whatever, based on that your taxes are calculated accordingly. Now, with a single status and 0 allowances, that's the default. It's going to have your maximum tax deducted, but that can be overridden at the employee level. So we're going to leave it default. So the next thing is the worker carrier name. And basically what happens is, in all the states, they legislate the workers' compensation programs to provide employees with some kind of an insurance coverage for work-related injuries. In every state, employers are liable for the premiums for this insurance. And in some states, the employee pays a part of this as well. The premiums are collected by the workers' compensation insurance carriers, and you can enter the name of the carrier and the rates in these fields. So we will come back and talk a little more in details about this particular topic when we will show the setups for workers' compensation. For now, we're going to leave it null because none of these are required fields, so we will just leave these setups. So let's take a look one more time. The state code is our state. If you have multiple states, you're going to enter another line and enter the information for that state. We will leave it as default localities. This is the company identification number. Same thing in here. The methods for SUI and SDI are self-adjust, and the filing status or the allowances at this point the default is single and 0 allowances. So at this we will save it. And these are pretty much the setups that we're going to do at the GRE and the business group level. So if you are not using the payroll module, probably you will not use these setups. So these setups are kind of useful if you are using the payroll module along with your core HR. So with these completed, we should move on to the next step, which is creating the payment methods. Now, for creating the payment methods, let's take a look at our document in here. So this is where we're going to create the payment methods. So for this test purpose, we are using 3 different payment methods. One is the check, so that the employee will receive a live check. The next one is a direct deposit, so that the money is going to be deposited directly into the employee's account. And then the third one we're going to use is a child support, just for an example, which is a third-party payment, that will be deposited in a different particular account, and this is going to be taken out from the employee's paycheck and will be paid to a third party which manages the child support. So let's get started with setting up the first pay method, which is the check. And let's go back into Oracle, and we can close this. For the payment methods, we need to go into the payroll. This is the navigation under your HRMS manager responsibility, payroll, and underneath that payment methods. And like all the setups in HRMS module, we're going to make sure that we keep our effective date as this particular date. If you have a different effective date, you can leave it that way. Now we already have the effective date on January 1st, 1951, and we don't want to change it. Now, the first thing is check payment. We can just say check or check payment. The type is check. The currency defaults to US dollars. We're going to leave it like that. Now this is not a third-party payment, so we will not check this checkbox. Now we're going to enter the bank details in here. The account name is, we can name it something meaningful here. So this is our this is the bank name or the account name. This account or the bank details is actually the details for the employer. So this is the account from which the money is going to be taken out and will be paid to the employees. So this information that we are entering here is the employer bank account details. So we're going to name it the Demo Corporation US Payroll Expense. That's a meaningful name for this. And the account type is, let's say, checking. We will enter the account number. This is our account number. And the transit code, which is the routing number. Again, these are all hypothetical numbers. You get nothing out of these bank account. So the bank name, Dollar Bank. That's a cool name for a bank. The bank branch is Dollar Bank, Los Angeles. Okay. And then we come back to the next tab, which is the costing, and we are going to cost this payment. So we're going to click on cost payment, and we're going to, of course, transfer this to GL as well. So we'll say transfer to GL, and let's see what else we need to do. We click on then we go to the general ledger tab, and we'll see that you can select the ledger, or we can have this set up when we are transferring, when we are importing it to GL, we can select the ledger during that step. So we will not default the ledger at this point. Now again, there's more information. The cash management. If your company is using cash management, you can set up the cash management bank account in here. And in the further information, if you see that this is disabled, the reason being this type is check. So you don't have to set anything in here. We will see that when we set up the notch out, the direct deposit, we will have to enter information for the further information tab. But now that's pretty much it. We set the check payment, check. We entered the information for the source bank. We said we're going to cost this payment and we're going to transfer this to GL. We are not selecting any default ledger. We are not using the cash management in this example, and this is disabled. So let's save this. So we have defined our check payment, the payment method. The next one that we're going to set up is the direct deposit. So the name should be direct deposit. So we're going to click on the plus icon right here. The name is direct deposit. The type is NACHA. And again, this is not a third-party payment. This is just the direct deposit for the employees. Now, similarly, we're going to enter the bank details. The account name could be the same as the previous one because it doesn't matter if it's a check or it is a direct deposit. It's going to come out of the employer's same bank account. So, or you can say that US payroll expense, we can have the same name. Let's use the same name here. The account type is checking. I'm going to use the same information here. The transit code is the same. And also the bank name is same bank and the same branch. Okay, so now we go to the costing tab. Of course, we're going to cost this payment. So we're going to say cost this payment, and we're going to transfer this to GL as well. No changes to the general ledger tab because we're not selecting the default ledger. Now we go to cash management. We're not setting up anything in here, and then we go to the other. Look here, the difference. Now when we selected the type as check, we saw that the further information and all this fields that we are seeing here, there was no value in there, and that was disabled. Now, by selecting the option of NACHA, we have this particular field or this particular information enabled, and now we will have to enter some information in these fields. Now, the first one is a foreign transaction. No, this will not allow to do you any foreign transaction. Now, this the destination code, we will enter something in here, say 1230000 123. The destination name, it's going to go from dollar bank to the employee's bank, right? So again, the origin code is say Demo Corp, and or we can we can say that the code is some kind of a number in here in our example, and it has to be, I think, just like the same way that the destination code and the destination name, the origin code and the origin name, we'll use the same way. We'll just say 987.000.987. So now, anything else in here? So if these are all for the international transfer, so we are not going to enter any information in here. The balance to NACHA file is yes, and if you want to have some header line 1 and 2, you can have some information there, but in this case we are not having any information there. So let's click OK, and we will save it. The next, the final payment method for our testing is going to be the child support, which is a third-party payment, like I mentioned before. So we'll say child support. The type is again NACHA. Now, this is all. The reason this is a NACHA is because this is also a direct deposit. So the money is going to be taken away directly. There will be no check, which will be, the employer is not going to cut a check. It's going to be taken out from the employee's paycheck and will directly be deposited to the particular destination that we are specifying here. So this is a kind of a direct deposit. That's why this is a NACHA. And this is also a third-party payment. So let's select third-party payment option. And we, of course, are going to set our the bank details. You can have a separate bank account for this, or you can use your same bank account for entering this information. This is not really your payroll expense, so this is kind of a different bank account that you can have for your child support. So you can say that this is the Demo Corporation US payroll account, and this is your checking account, and you'll see the account number. We can have the same account number. This is just for practice purpose. Ideally, you're going to get this information from your client, so you don't have to come up with something. Now in this case, I'm just entering something because for practice purpose, they really don't have any significance, because we're not sending money out or in to any account. We'll use the same bank, which is our dollar bank, and the same branch, the dollar bank Los Angeles branch. Click OK. It comes to the costing tab. So what are we going to do here? We're going to cost this payment, and we will of course transfer this to GL. So we're going to select this option and transfer to GL. Similar way, no change on the general ledger tab, nothing on the cash management, and guess what? This is a nacha, so you should have something on the other. So it's there. Now we're going to have a destination code and the origin name. We have to enter those. So at this point, you can leave the destination code as blank. You can manually, or the file gets generated, so you can enter those, and it's not mandatory to enter these information. So we will just leave blank. We can just have the origin code, which is 987.000.987, and this is our origin name, which is I believe was in here, Demo Corp. So we can say Demo Corp, and the destination can vary. It may not be one, so it can depend on where you are sending it. So and also this balanced nacha file is yes, and there's nothing for the international destination qualifier, country, all those information. Okay, and let's save this. So we have created 3 different payment methods for our payroll. So those 3 payment methods will be used in our payroll, which we will show you in the next video. So in the next video, we will continue with this. We will show you the consolidation set, payroll, and how we are going to use these payment methods that we just created. So until then, feel free to post your questions on our website, and we really thank you for watching.